No, this is San Francisco PHP Meetup Group. Tonight we have Jason. I can't. I'm sorry. Jason Mathai. Sorry about that. I'm really bad with names. He's going to talk to us about some open data, the OpenPhoto Project, some really cool, interesting ways of looking at data, both for who owns it, how to use it. It's quite fascinating, I think. Our sponsors tonight, IGN. We're food, beverages, my time, facilities, that kind of fun stuff. We're hiring for a PHP engineer with a lot of JavaScript skills for our ad team, and we're also looking for a lead PHP Java engineer for our video team. Also sponsoring usually, though I forgot to order them, is O'Reilly for books. I forgot to order extra books, so we don't have any to raffle off tonight. I'm sorry. We'll go doubles on it next month. Speaking of next month, we're going to have a big Node.js event over at the Microsoft building. I don't know how many of you have gone to those quarterly events. It's been closer to 6 months since the last one, but we're going to try to kick those off again. So that should be a really fun event. Does anyone have any announcements about looking to be hired, looking to hire other community events, anything like that? All right. Well, that was quick and simple, and we'll get right to it. All you, sir.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. So this is this slideshow. The presentation is at that URL. It's a slideshare. So if anybody wants to follow along, you can. So I'm going to start this off with a story. And the moral of this is that everybody has a story, and this happens to be my story. And if we go back to 1955, that's my mother up there, second to the right in the back. And it looks like a very upset group of people, but the fact is Indians never smile in photos. I don't know if you've ever seen a group of Indians, but they don't. And so 1978, things changed, and my mom had me. And so I'm obviously Indian, or I'm upset at somebody about something, because I'm not smiling either. And if we fast forward a couple years, this is me. I don't know if you noticed, my parents dressed me up in a blazer. They forgot about my hair. But these are all really great pictures of me. In 1985, the first soccer team I played on went to the state championships. I spent most of it on the sidelines. And if we fast forward a little bit more, I actually hate fishing. Last time me and my dad went fishing, it was on the Pacific Ocean on a boat, and we both threw up. But this is one of my fondest memories. Fast forward a little further, true story. This is me dressed up as Gandhi. I Elmer's glued that mustache onto my face. Don't do that. Elmer's glue doesn't come off of skin very easily. And this is a photo of me with my grandfather who passed away, but I really think he's one of the coolest people that none of you will ever get to meet. Fast forward 2010, I had a son. And so this is interesting because at this point, I transitioned from being a storyteller to being a story preserver, right? So I'm taking all of these photos of my son, and the goal is that when he's 30 years old, he'll have all of his photos to look back on to be able to tell a story similarly to what I just did for you guys. And that's not where it starts. So that's like right in the middle. 5,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians were capturing their moments, right, in hieroglyphics. And so the point here is that as humans, we have always tried to preserve our moments visually. It's just a part of who we are. And so my name is Jason Mathai. I am one of the leads on the OpenPhoto Project. And I wanted to talk about, these are the main topics. So we're going to talk about why we started the OpenPhoto Project. We're going to talk about ownership and portability, why PHP plays an important role in what we're doing, how it works, and where we're currently at. And I'm going to keep it short in case we want some questions. So this is a picture from, I don't know, like 2005 or something. Prior to this, I had co-founded a photo startup in 2004. This is us getting ready to scale for all these massive users that we're going to get. So we're configuring all these servers. This is before the days of like EC2. But fast forward a little bit, and we shut down. This is an actual email. So this is the person's reply. I'll read it out loud. So we shut down. We gave our users 6 months to download all their photos. It turns out that only 10% of them actually clicked that link. So while this is a couple years after we shut down. While I appreciate your quick reply, I still can't believe, and I don't want to give up trying to retrieve my pictures. It's all I had for the last 5 years of my life. All the memories. I still get these emails. Like, these are horrible. Like, I feel horrible that I had something to do with this lady's grief. So these emails suck. But it's not just startups, right? In 2007, Yahoo shut down Yahoo Photos. In 2008, AOL shut down AOL Pictures. And our beloved Apple is shutting down whatever they call it. I don't know. Gallery Me, Mobile Me, whatever it is. But they give you these really arcane instructions on how you can download all these photos, which no one's going to do, and these memories are going to be lost, right? This is what describes everything that I just said. Like, technology is really supposed to help us, but this is idiotic the way that we as engineers are handling the data of the users who really add value to the services that we're building. So to start it off, the first thing we have to talk about is ownership. And if you really boil it down, ownership comes down to options, having options with what you're going to do. And any site that you use right now, if you use Flickr, Picasa, they all, if you read their terms of service, they all say that you have ownership of your photos. Flickr is a really good example. So you upload all your photos to Flickr. The terms of service say that you have, the photos are yours, but if you're not a paying user, they only give you access to a certain number of photos. If you upload more than those, they don't let you see the ones before. And if you don't pay, they don't let you download the original photos that you uploaded. So they say that you own your photos, but you really don't, right? So when I say ownership, I mean having the options to do what you want with the data that you give to websites. And then you can't talk about ownership without talking about portability. And because without portability, ownership is really moot. And so when you talk about portability, what it really boils down to is longevity. You want to make sure that this content, specifically photos, in our case, are something that you can retain for a long period of time. And just because it's old doesn't mean that it's useless, and this is extremely relevant for photos. And it's 2012, and portability does not mean a zip file, right? So Google lets you download, what, I don't know, let's say you have 10,000 photos on Picasa. They let you download that in zip files. What are you going to do with that? You lose a lot of the content, and you have to figure out where you're going to put that once you get it back. And so why PHP? So the first reason why we chose PHP for a majority of the software stack is that it's ubiquitous. It's the most widely used runtime, period. One of the goals was that if you have an account on a $5 a month web host, that you can get OpenPhoto running on that. And so PHP played an important role there. And so people say PHP is easy, and it really is. But at the same time, it's hard to master. You have to remember needle haystack, haystack needle, and the string 0 equals false. And so it's hard to master because it's easy to write buggy code if you don't really understand what PHP is doing. And there are some things that you can't do. But on the flip side, it's really easy to make PHP awesome. And well-written PHP has all these benefits of being easy to hack. Anybody practically with very little programming experience can understand and start fiddling with PHP code, which is extremely important for what we're doing. It can be well organized, and if so, it's extremely well performant. So the way that OpenPhoto works, so the next thing I want to talk about is how OpenPhoto works. So there's one simple question that we asked. What if users were the ones that granted applications access to their data? Do you guys understand the difference between that and how it works now? Like right now, you post all your stuff to Facebook, and Facebook gives you access to your own data that you gave them. What if we could kind of do a role reversal where you give Facebook access to data that you own, and then you could revoke that access, but you still own your data? And so it works in a couple different manners. It works like this because we have low-level adapters in OpenPhoto. This means that you can write your own adapter to say, this is how I want the file system to look. So you can write an S3 adapter, a Dropbox adapter, a Box.net adapter, a local file system adapter. If you can get a web server running on your iPhone, you can write an adapter to store photos on your iPhone. We provide abstractions and adapters for databases. So you can write an adapter to hook OpenPhoto up to any database or anything that even remotely resembles a database you can use. And identity providers. So right now we have our primary identity provider is Browser ID, but you can write a identity provider for Facebook or an internal LDAP server if you want. And so we give you like very low-level bindings into the application to build tools. But it also looks like this because we provide polished web and mobile applications, all of which are extendable. So you can have web and mobile applications that you can then extend and do all sorts of things. We have plugins so that you can, similar to WordPress, so you can augment the experience of the website. You can do webhooks so that you can have real-time applications based off of when photos get uploaded, when they get updated, based off of all the information that's there. And the entire front end for the web application is entirely themable. So it looks like this as well. And so I want to talk about where we're at today. We started in June of 2011. I launched this as a Kickstarter project. We had over 400 backers, and we raised a total of $25,000. So that was great. We knew that, hey, this is something that people actually care about and people want. So I started building it myself. Then if we fast forward a little bit, a couple months to August, we got accepted into Mozilla's Web4 program. It's an open innovation program that accepts open source projects, and they've been a tremendous help for us. So they've been helping us with mentorship and marketing and all this other stuff. And then there's GitHub. So GitHub is awesome because we initially started on that. We have over 600 watchers. We have over 100 forks and 17 repositories. And most importantly, 50 people have contributed to the project in one way or the other. Some of these people are contributing documentation. Other people fix bugs. And some people actually submit entire features. Patrick over here has written the entire iPhone app for OpenPhoto. So we have over 50 contributors. We have an API. It's documented and it's extremely consistent. So this is what like a PHP snippet would look like to call kind of our test endpoint. And more importantly than having the API, we have bindings. So we have bindings in PHP, Python, Ruby, and Java. And so if you remember the name of the project, it's the OpenPhoto Project, and the goal is to not only enable individuals to do what they want with their photos, but it's to enable developers to be able to build any sort of application that they want on top of OpenPhoto. And our API also supports webhooks, which are pretty awesome. So this is what the web default theme is going to look like. It looks a little different right now, but this is what it'll look like. So we have designers in our community that are helping out and making everything that we do look good. Because when you talk about photos, you can't have a crappy-looking photo application and expect people to use it instead of Flickr. And so this has both themes and plugins. I don't really have a detailed view, but for example, when you click on a photo, it's going to show a map. And you can be using the Google Map plugin or the OpenStreetMap plugin, depending on what you want to use. And that applies for everything else. There's a Facebook like plugin if you want to use it. That'll show a like button on your photo. And this is what the iPhone app will look like. Currently, we've got a couple hundred people using it on test flight, and it'll be ready in the App Store by the end of the month. And so all of this stuff is open source, right? So this means that you can download the source for this iPhone app and build it. You can change the logo. You can do whatever you want with this. You can have your own iPhone app installed on your phone. So quite different than than what you experience with Flickr or SmugMug or any of these other services. So basically, I wanted to keep the talk short, but it's 2012. Silers are so 2011. And so the goal of OpenPhoto is to allow users to have tools that are as good as Flickr, but not have to upload their photos to Yahoo servers, right? And so we're starting that. We've launched everything that I've shown you is launched. You can download and install it on the openphotoproject.org. You can get installation instructions to spin up an EC2 AMI that we have, or go step by step to install it yourself. You can go to openphoto.me and sign up for a hosted account, but all of these still allow you to select where you want your photos. Right now, we have bindings, adapters for Dropbox and S3, and local file system if you install it yourself. And so that's pretty much the gist of the presentation. I really wanted to open up for questions because what I found is the most interesting parts of the project come when I start talking about this and people start asking questions and I can answer them. So that being said, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Yep, in the back. Yes. So we don't have any plans on extending this to data. Like this applies to music. This applies to documents. We don't have any plans to include those into what we're doing. Videos is something we do plan on adding, right? But videos, it's not trivial to properly support videos in a way that provides a lot of value to users. Yeah, I completely agree with you. So like I said, videos are a good extension to the specific problem that we're solving. Like we're very much targeting the area of photos, memories that are attached to them. And you know, if we really do hope, that's the beauty of open source. If you want to take this and extend so what we have is we have this object model. So we define what a photo object looks like. We define what a comment looks like, and we'll define what a video object looks like. If somebody else wants to define what a user profile object looks like, it's completely extendable because you can put that profile information into the same data store because the software doesn't have exclusive rights to the underlying data stores, right? So anybody can kind of extend this and augment what we're building on right now. Right now we support MySQL, SimpleDB, and somebody is working on a DynamoDB adapter, but there's an interface to easily write one for whatever data store you want. If you want it to be flat file, you could do that. Whatever it is, it's extendable. Yes?
So, in order to use this thing, you have to be a developer, right? To install the Portal project.
Right. So developers can install it, but similar to WordPress, right? You can install WordPress, or you can go to WordPress.com and just sign up for an account. So if you go to openphoto.me, right now there's an invite code. You can use WebFWD as an invite code to get in, but the goal is this is not a project for developers to put their photos on. This is a project for everybody to put their photos on.
Okay, so if you sign up, maybe I didn't get that part.
Yeah.
So then where do the photos go?
Right.
What servers do they go if you sign up on the web?
Yeah, so if you sign up for the hosted version at openphoto.me, and we're working on this, but when you first sign up, we ask for a username and an email address. And then you have two checkboxes. You can select Dropbox or Amazon S3.
But do you still have access if you want to, or somebody else, to that Dropbox?
Well, so
you're authorizing your app, right?
yes, you're authorizing our app. So we have access to it, and you can revoke access. The beauty of this is you can revoke access, or the OpenPhoto project can die tomorrow, but your photos don't die along with it, right? So if you select Dropbox, it takes you through Dropbox's OAuth flow, takes you right back to OpenPhoto, and from there on out, the interface is the same. Like, you use the iPhone app, you don't use it any differently. It's just the software will put the photo where it needs to be. And if you select Amazon S3, they unfortunately don't have a good OAuth flow, so you have to actually get your key in secret. But as soon as they support OAuth, we'll use that. But you basically grant OpenPhoto access to where you want your photos. But like I said, this isn't for technical people. The goal is that everybody can use it. So you don't have to, on the hosted version, you don't have to check either of those boxes, and we'll provide a bucket for you, like a shared bucket. But the goal is that you eventually say, you know what, I do want to put this into my Box.net account or my Dropbox account, and we can easily transfer the files over, right? So remember how I said you have photo objects? So what the project, one of the things that the project does is it normalizes the interfaces to all of these different underlying services. So what you do is you query to get a photo object out of, say, MySQL and the local file system. You can take that photo object and stick it into, say, SimpleDB and S3, right? So it becomes really trivial to be able to, that's the portability aspect of the project.
The other question is, so, photos are basically, you want to share your photos.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the Facebook,
Yeah.
most popular app is the photo app.
Yes.
So how many users are there, and how do you plan on, like, so how does the sharing work? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
you tag people? And
Yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah.
The sharing is the main part.
Yes. So we don't think people are going to necessarily use OpenPhoto and stop using Facebook, right? So that's not a part of the goal. But if you have the web, if you have a website with all your photos, you can.
Facebook is like, some people are scared.
Yeah.
Put it up to the advertisers, they're giving it to like whoever. And, like,
Yeah. So if you don't want to use Facebook, you can. So basically, you get part of the project is this web component, right? So you have a website with all of your photos. You can use to upload photos. You can use to organize your photos with tags. We'll have albums here shortly. And then you can select the privacy on your photos. But it's fairly straightforward. Photos are either public or private, and you grant groups access to private photos. And the groups are just specified by email address, right? So the goal is OpenPhoto has no concept of accounts, right? So if I say, I don't know what your email address is, but we'll say it's joe@example.com. If I say, here are a bunch of vacation photos, and I want joe@example.com access to them, I can mark that photo as private and grant you access to those photos. And then if you come to the site and you log in as joe@example.com via Facebook, via browser ID, via some other identity provider that exists, you then have access to those photos, right? So you can do private sharing or public sharing through the website, but you can also share from OpenPhoto out to Facebook, right? So you have a like button. If you click the like button, it posts it to Facebook. On the mobile app on iPhone, you'll have an option to say, okay, I'm going to upload this photo, but I also want it to go to Facebook.
Or
Yep.
you could run Facebook ads. So
Yeah.
it protects your ability to pull your photos back out of Facebook.
Yep.
Like
Yeah. Yes. Oh, he was saying you could write a Facebook app to get your photos out of Facebook. Is that what you're saying?
Right. You can
Yeah.
like basically write a Facebook app. You could write an open source Facebook app that allows you to, as developers, you could join the app program and upload your app and share your photos on Facebook in a way that kind of locks Facebook from owning your photos. Right. So there's always those options. Open source fine.
Yeah.
Or and then obviously for the .com version, the .me version, an extension of their service would be to use our Facebook app.
Yep.
Without that.
Follow-up question. So how does, like, do you have to, like, take off on Flickr, even if you don't have the account, you can look at people's photos? Do you have to sign in browser ID or anything?
No. So public photos, you don't have. You can just browse without having to sign into anything. But obviously, if you want access to photos that are restricted to everybody else, you have to authenticate somehow. and we chose email addresses. Like, we don't support Twitter yet because we don't know exactly how that would work, because Twitter doesn't give access to a user's email address. It's their Twitter handle. And so we'd love to support Twitter. We just have to figure out how that works. Facebook gives you access to their email address, and so that's kind of the identity piece that people really identify with. They say, oh, this is my email address. I use it to sign into a bunch of sites. So that's why we've gone with that. And Browser ID does the same thing, right? That's all based off of email. So yeah, so if you want access to specific things, you'd have to sign in. Yes? Yeah, so that's a recurring thing that comes up. We don't have any plans on supporting OpenID, but again, this is the thing, like, we don't have any plans on it. That doesn't mean there are no plans on supporting OpenID, because all that takes is a fork of the project or a pull request, right? So we don't have any plans on supporting OpenID, but we have an issue in GitHub to support, I think it was Google, right? The way you, and I think the way that you integrate Google login, I think, is via OpenID. And as long as they give access to the user's email address, it's fairly trivial. And since this is a technical thing, I can kind of show you some of the code. Let me do that. You guys can keep asking questions if you have any. But let me, So okay, so we have like 17 repositories. So that's it's not even showing up there. Hold on. So we have. Okay, so the front end repository is all of the PHP stuff, minus the PHP bindings, which is a separate repository. This is one package that has both the website and the API, right? And so the website is constructed entirely on top of the API. So you could recreate everything that we've done on the website using the API. So that's extremely important. It's kind of defines the project a little bit. And so if you look at, let's see, here, I'm just going to show you what a login adapter looks like. So let's see. So we have a login browser ID and a login Facebook. This is the code to support browser ID, right? So it's like, when you condense that down and take away the stupid spacing, it's like 25 lines of code. And the Facebook one is not much bigger, right? So imagine, like, to add support for OpenID, it's just one more of these files, right? So it's fairly trivial. Okay. So any other questions? Or yep. On top of what? Yeah. So I've talked with the Singly folks way back, like when I was initially starting with this. Not extensively, no. But I mean, the goals are very aligned, and so yeah. So there's a handful of projects that are kind of doing some similar stuff. The Locker project is one of them, and we've talked about. I forget what they're called. They have things. I don't know if they're connectors, maybe. I think they're connectors. And so a couple people in our community have mentioned, hey, we should have a connector for OpenPhoto into the Locker project, which I think is awesome. We're not tracking that. The Unhosted project is another one. I don't know what their status is, but their claim is I steal their tagline, which is separating application logic from data storage, which happens to be the same thing that we're doing. But the Unhosted is one. There's GNU Media Goblin, which is kind of like this, but it supports video. Trying to think, but there are a couple others that are kind of doing similar types of things. Yeah.
What about have you thought of since it's an open source project, all the photos kind of do a stock photo kind of thing, so developers, us
I haven't personally thought of that, but the goal here is that as developers create applications on top of this platform, right? So here's an example of how this becomes pretty cool. I have all my photos on the hosted version of OpenPhoto. So I have like five or 6,000 photos there. I'm not a photographer, but let's say I was a photographer, and then you create an OpenPhoto site that is geared specifically around stock photography. Maybe you're selling it. Maybe it's not for developers. Whatever it is. I can sign up for your account and grant your application access to either my hosted OpenPhoto account, because we have, every instance of OpenPhoto is an OAuth provider, and so I can grant you access to this if that's the way you've written your app, or you can kind of write your own API that adheres to the objects that we've defined, right? And so I can grant your service access to for me it would be my S3 bucket, maybe my SimpleDB database, and now all of a sudden your application has the same level of access to my photos as the hosted version of OpenPhoto, right? And then and if you want, you can stop using the hosted version of OpenPhoto. I mean, I can't stop them. So right now it's the MIT license. We may move to the AGPL, but I don't care. Like my goal is to give people options, because I think that, I don't care so much about like the data that I put on Facebook, but I care a lot about my photos, and I think most people do. And if I talk to my brother, who's been taking photos for 10 years, he probably doesn't have photos that he took 6 years ago, right? They're uploaded somewhere maybe. They were on some CD that's maybe lost now. He has no idea where that is. That's 6 years ago. Like, my mom has photos from 30 years ago. And we as this computer high-tech generation don't have the photos that we took 6 years ago. So that's to me that's a huge problem, and I'm thinking maybe potentially a little out in the future, but like I said, when my son turns 20, 25 years old, he better have his baby pictures that I'm taking of him. Otherwise, I failed him as a father, right? So that's the goal of the project. And if people want to create for-pay services, I think that's great. I think that open source projects, to be truly sustainable and to have a truly measurable impact on the world, need to have some sort of monetizable piece around it. You look at WordPress, I think it's a great example. They've had a significant impact on the world with their software. But if it was just pure open source and nobody was making money off of it, developers and Automatic included, it wouldn't be where it is today, right? So part of the project is to encourage people to figure out how that works. Yep. Yes. I don't know. So you're paying like $25 a year at Flickr, right? So here's the problem with S3. S3 is not geared towards consumers. Depending on how many photos do you have? 20,000. So that may be 10, 15 gigs. So it's going to cost you a little more on S3, right? Because it's metered. Like, you pay for what you use. I have about 5,000 or 6,000 photos. It's about, wait a minute. I think it's, actually no. So my 5,000 or 6,000 photos is about 20 gigs. And for 20 gigs of photos, it's costing me about $2.50 a month. So it's roughly the same price as Flickr. But if it costs me $60 a year, for me it's worth it, because these photos are the most valuable digital files that I own, right? And so for me it's worth it. But yeah, so you'll pay a little more. And the problem with S3 is that because it's not geared towards consumers, they don't have the tiered pricing yet. They'll get there. They're gonna have something for consumers, and they'll have tiered pricing, and I think they'll offer it at something that's going to be very competing to what Yahoo charges for Flickr. But until then, it may or may not cost you more. Yeah, well, I mean, Eucalyptus adheres to S3's API, right? So it should work out of the box. You just have a different host that you specify to where these photos reside. So Eucalyptus is an open source project to, correct me if I'm wrong, to like provide a lot of the stuff that Amazon Web Services provide. I think it does EC2, things like EC2, S3. I don't know what else they do, but yeah, it's an open source project and it's somewhat mature. I mean, I don't think they're beta. I think people actually use them. So, yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So your first question, your hard drive, yeah, sure, yeah. So your hard drive, I have OpenPhoto running on my laptop. So you can have OpenPhoto running on your laptop, storing your photos on your hard drive, right? And it's a way to potentially make your photos manageable. You don't have to rely on folders. The problem with your hard drive is that it's not internet accessible. So you can't share the photos if they are just on your hard drive. Okay, so depending on Carbonite's API, you might be able to do something there, right? So the beauty of this is the file system that OpenPhoto supports is limited to what you can do in PHP, right? So you're limited by web services that you can call. You're limited by file pointers that you can create on the local disk, right? So there are a lot of options, right? And so there might be something there with like the Carbonite to back your photos up somehow. Yes. Yes. Okay. So let me make sure I answer all your questions. So if you have, we do everything that we can to extract data out of your photo. So if you have tags on your photo, if you put the tags into your photo using Lightroom, we'll extract those tags out. We extract metadata information out, geolocation information, everything that we can extract. We leave the photo alone, but we extract that data, put it into the database so that then you can do some really cool stuff based off of those. So yes, so if you have photos on your hard drive, you can, we'll do our best to get all of that information out. As far as, I wasn't quite as clear on the question about like Evernote and Sketch. Yeah. So I've clicked on Sketch links, but how are you saying that applies to OpenPhoto, or how might it? It completely depends on Sketch's APIs, right? So specifically, webhooks are, in my mind, the most important component of an API on the web, right? Because webhooks. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with webhooks, but the way webhooks work are on OpenPhoto, if you upload a photo, you can tell it to make an HTTP post to any arbitrary URL saying that, hey, this photo has been uploaded, right? And so what that allows other people to do is to build applications as if they were on the same sort of like platform and get notifications of events, which is really important. So in this case of Sketch, if Sketch has a webhook API, it's trivial to kind of hook that into OpenPhoto's API and say every time you put something on Sketch, you can it'll get posted on OpenPhoto. We have two if this then that recipes, so one of the things that we made was a Dropbox Uploader, which if you add this thing, it will you have you grant the app access to your Dropbox account to a local folder, not the entire thing. Don't grant any app access to your entire Dropbox folder, just local access. So they have access to one folder. And it monitors that. Dropbox, for example, doesn't have a webhook API, which means we have to poll them. And if a new photo shows up, it gets uploaded into your OpenPhoto account. If you have an if this then that recipe, you can say every time a photo is uploaded to Flickr, every time you take an Instagram photo, stick it into this Dropbox folder and it automatically gets put into your OpenPhoto account. So yes, you can. I mean, we believe that the web needs to be programmable as well, which is why we have the API and webhooks specifically. But yes, you should be able to do that. And if you can't do it, it's because of a deficiency in the other services API. Yes. Ooh. Yes and no. So I can start. Yeah, yes and no. So I can start with OpenPhoto. Yeah. I haven't actually answered this question, but this is the first time I've been asked that. So I believe you can start with OpenPhoto, let's say connected to S3. And you can upload 1,000 photos. And then you can say, I don't want to store my photos on S3. I now want to use box.net, for example, or my local file system, whatever you want to use. The existing photos they'll continue to work, right? There's not necessarily a way to kind of fork in the middle and say, oh, I'm simultaneously supporting two backends. I mean, it's entirely feasible because it's just a kind of a fork in the path that the code executes. But right now, you can't say, oh, I have these two, and for these photos, I want to put it in this one, and for these, I want to put it in that one. That doesn't exist, but you can. It's not undoable. It's just the path that the code execution takes. You had a question first. Yes. Yeah. Hmm? Well, yeah. So we define objects, right? So actually, the best place to go. Does that say document? No, that does not say documentation. So let's see. So I don't know. Let me go to a photo API here. So we define. So for example, we define a photo object. This is what a photo object looks like. And you can actually augment this. You can add things to it if you want, but this is kind of the base of what a photo object looks like. So yes, we have a standard. We kind of define it, but it's open, so like anybody else can kind of adhere to it. And portability of this, yeah. So portability isn't just your JPEGs and potentially your RAWs once that's supported. It's the entire thing. It's comments, it's tags, it's everything. It's the number of views. It's all that information. And so we don't just allow you to select where your photos live. Part of the software lets you specify where the data lives, right? And so, for example, if you have it in your own MySQL database, then all that data is there, right? And it's portable because what happens is when you query it with the API, you get back this photo object that then you can pass to a host API, and that photo object gets inserted potentially into an entirely different backend. So that's the portability. But yeah, so we have these predefined ways that certain objects look. And that's the way you get them out regardless of what backend you're using.
What is
The licensing?
the license?
Oh, license, that's Creative Commons. So, but it's a string, right? So you can put whatever you want in there. You can put foobar in there. But typically when we expose it with the interfaces that we build, we have all rights reserved and then all of the Creative Commons licenses. So that's what we specify there. Yes? No, no. So that is a big feature that we have not tackled yet. So the goal is that this is federated so that the nodes can talk to one another, right? So the goal there, so there's some really, really interesting things that you can do once that's there. One of our community members is one of the authors of the OStatus protocol, so I'm kind of working with him a bit. So imagine you have all these nodes and they're decentralized. And maybe 3 people have an account on this hosted one. You have it installed at EC2, and somebody else has it at some, I don't know, some Heroku or something like that. All these nodes can then talk to one another, right? We'll be able to talk to one another. And so a really cool use case that we were talking about this morning, we were having lunch with somebody, was this idea that how many people have been on vacation with multiple people who all have cameras, you get home, and you don't ever see those photos ever again, right? So all the time for me. And this is 2012. Like, how have we not fixed this? How have we not solved this? So imagine in this utopic world when everybody understands the value of OpenPhoto and they're using it in one form or another, if all of us went on a vacation and we're all of our OpenPhoto nodes are connected to one another, which is really, that's technical jargon, but basically you're following somebody else is really how that would actually work in the UI. So you're following somebody. And we all upload our photos to OpenPhoto, right? And I'm viewing your site, and they're public or I have private access to these photos. And I say, I like this photo. I'm in this photo. And I just click a button, and it gets automatically sucked out of your account into my account, right? So what ends up happening there is it's this file copy from your local file system into my Amazon S3 bucket, right? So that's kind of the long-term goal here of what we're trying to do. Like, that's kind of a long-term vision that we have. But once these nodes are federated, then you start to get some really interesting use cases for how people can use their site. It's no longer just a site, but it becomes this kind of web of connected photo repositories. So it's distributed, not yet federated, but hopefully sooner than later. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of an issue, but it's not. So the original goal. So the hosted version is in AWS. We're using S3 for the shared bucket, and we were originally planning on users using their own Amazon account and SimpleDB. We ran into a couple issues. The SimpleDB create domain API is extremely flaky. And so you get a lot of 400 errors when you try to create domains. And so when you set up the service, it has to create like 5 or 6 domains, which are just database tables for the most part. And so we couldn't really roll out with that because it's just a horrible user experience. That was one problem. The other problem is because AWS isn't user-friendly, that means everybody that signs up, if we were using SimpleDB, would have to figure out how to get their key and secret, which is horrible. So what we do is we're using the MySQL adapter. And the hosted version is 100% the front-end repository. Anything specific that we've done to it, which is very little, has been via plugins and adapters, right? So trying to think of this. So I don't even know if we have anything that's not part of the official repository. But if we did, it would be, we do. So there's a Facebook Connect plugin, right? But we have our own Facebook Connect plugin, but it's to use one account for everybody, whereas otherwise it would be each user has their own account. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, it's the same. But to answer your question, which I think I might have forgot, yeah, the metadata. Yeah. No, so right now it's in MySQL, and so we have you can get it out via the API, right? Which sucks. That's what everybody else allows you to do. If I go away, it's gone. So these are the problems. We're well aware of these problems. Like we made a decision to kind of undermine our own values a little bit to make it usable for end users. but it's something that we were hoping that DynamoDB was something that we could potentially use, but again, it's got this AWS like key and secret problem. We're trying to figure out what the best way is, because believe me, after getting like an email like that, that's the last thing I want to do is be responsible for somebody else's photos. And so we're trying to figure out what the best way to make it portable. And again, portability isn't giving you a bunch of text files. Like, what are you going to, that's not very valuable, right? So we're trying to figure out what the best way is to let users own the metadata. It's just cloud databases for end users, that's just not quite there yet. So that's a kind of an open issue we're trying to figure out. Yes.
Curious, you work full-time on this project, or
Yes.
you have a team, and like, how are you doing funding? Like, fundraising, do you have that?
Yes, so I've raised funding in my savings account. No, so I've been full-time on this. So I left Yahoo at the end of May, so it's been like 10 months. So I've been full-time on this. I did raise some money on Kickstarter. $25,000 doesn't go very far, but yeah. So I've been bootstrapping this myself. The community is 50 people, and my goal is, like I said, like I want to work on this like long term. So I need to figure out how this is gonna pay my bills, right? And so, you know, and Patrick was, like I said, he did the iPhone app. He quit his job, and so he's on this full time. And so the both of us are trying to figure out how we can work on this. And the hosted version is how we're trying to do that now. Like right now, everything's free, and we will probably offer some sort of premium services on top of it. But yeah, so I've been working on it full time. And if I wasn't working on it full time, it would just be another open source project that developers use. And that's really not the goal of this thing. So. Yes? Uh-oh. What was that? What's missing? Well, yes, it is. So we have a field for. I can answer that question a couple of different ways. Yes, because it's open source, and it's not our data store, right? So yes, it's extensible. We have a field in the data model allows for arbitrary fields that aren't already defined. But if it's an important field, it needs to be defined in the photo object, and so. That's a pull request on this file right here. All of our documentation is on GitHub. So if there's something that needs to exist, so it's in the schemas here. Yeah. So it would be a pull request into here, and then we would make sure then as part of the pull request that the API supports adding that parameter as a first-class citizen to the photo object. Yes, I didn't catch the field that you were talking about. Oh, okay, sure, yes, yeah. So we can, so that's something that's definitely extendable. And again, like the thing is, I totally I get where you're coming from by asking me if this is possible, but like this isn't my project, right? So so yes, the answer is typically yes for anything that starts out that way. Yeah. Yeah. So, so where are we right now? So we're going to be launching at the end of this month, and so it'll be a much more polished. Oh no, yeah. Well, we're going to be launching like version 1.4. So 1.3 something is what's currently out there now. So it's been launched for a while. But we're going to have a 1.4 launch, which is going to be, we're going to polish off a lot of the rough edges. What we need help on is, so this is good. So we have 17 repositories, and they could all probably use some help or another. Somebody please help Patrick. He's the only person working on this iPhone app. The Android app, if anybody's, I know this is a PHP meetup, but the Android app could use a little bit of loving. We're trying to make it as high quality as possible. It's a little bit behind the iPhone app, but this is what we need help with. And so I spent like all of January, for the most part, getting the code in a better spot for people, for external contributors to contribute. So it's been awesome because, like, you know, there wasn't like a single unit test written until December. And so people were finding bugs, they were adding features without any sort of framework to test to see if what they were doing was breaking. But all of January, for the most part, I spent trying to get it, to make it easy for individuals to contribute. And so that specifically is a front-end project, which is almost all PHP, so good for this group. And so that means unit tests. So we have unit test coverage, so all of the models have coverage. And on top of that, we have this beginner tag, which we need to kind of keep updated. But these are issues that we've identified that probably isn't going to do too much damage if you try to fix it, not knowing the rest of the system. So most of these, so we have beginner, and then you can kind of drill down into like PHP, JavaScript, CSS, whatever your specialty is. So for example, unit tests for the graphics magic adapter, for example. So that's one that's pretty straightforward. Optimal compression values. Someone said, hey, the photos in OpenPhoto don't look quite as good as Flickr. So we're like, okay, we need to figure out what the optimal compression values are for these. More unit tests, adding rel equals no follow. So there's a lot of like really good issues here to get started, to get familiar with the project. But any of the issues, any of the 130 some issues are completely valid. And we try to do 2 releases out. And so we're only 1 release out now. So everything with release 1.4 is what's going to go into the next release. But yeah, we have a backlog. So this is probably the best place to go to help with this project. As far as overall features, documentation would be nice. Like we have everything documented, but maybe somebody to read through the documentation, make sure everything works. Playing with the binding, so the PHP binding, and making sure that works well. Basically making it better by submitting feature requests. So I'm trying to think what other. So one of the tools, we have this notion of importing and exporting, and so we have a Flickr export script which you can run, which will export all of the metadata from your Flickr account into flat files. And we want to have similar scripts for Picasa, for all these other services. We want to have a similar script for OpenPhoto so that it gets all of your photos out of OpenPhoto and creates these flat files. And these flat files can then be run through the importer script, and you can use that to import photos in. So, so we have these exporter tools that we can use. You can use help on. I don't know. That seems real all over the place. I wish I could give you a better answer, but really the issue list is the best place to go. Or use the product and see what sucks, and open an issue for that, or fix it yourself and do a pull request. We had one of the guys. I don't know if you guys know Orchestra.io. They were acquired by Heroku. They were PHP, like a PHP fog, app fog type service, but we still haven't merged his pull request. He made a pull request that allowed OpenPhoto to run on Orchestra.io, for example. So anything like that, it helps the project, because the goal is that it runs anywhere that you want it to run. So here's a list of the mobile iOS is our iPhone app. Community, that's just the openphotoproject.org. So yeah, if you see something on the openphotoproject.org website that is wrong, fork it, give us a pull request, and we'll fix it. The front end is what we were just looking at. It's the PHP. We have a Java binding, Android app, so we could definitely use help on this. It completely works. Like, you can take photos, you can view your photos. It works. We just want to like really polish off some of the rough edges there. A Python library. This is export for Flickr specifically, and this is an import that would consume the exported files from any of our export tools. A C# library that has got very little action. I think there might be a README for it. A WordPress plugin, and this is one where it works really well, but if you can make it better, this is an awesome one because I think this has got a lot of potential. A Windows application, which also I think has a README. This is for Windows 7, not Windows 7, whatever, Windows Phone. That's what that is. A kitchen sink, so if you have, we don't have a lot of, yeah. See, you can tell by the graph, we don't have a lot of stuff here. So the goal of this is to provide examples of what you can do. And maybe I'll show you guys one of those. A Ruby binding. Another big thing that we wanted, that's part of the project, is to have plugins for iPhoto, Aperture, Lightroom, anything that people use to organize their photos. And we want to have plugins that allow them to directly upload their photos to OpenPhoto from these applications. So we have a README for the OpenPhoto Aperture library. And this is the Objective-C, which we need to rip out of the iPhone app. A jQuery plugin for OpenPhoto would be awesome. This one, I don't know. I think I wrote that, so we don't want to look at that one. I want to look at my JavaScript. And this is the PHP binding. So we have a lot of things, but since this is a PHP a group, go to the front end or go to the kitchen sink would be good. We only have a couple examples, so we have this example of a webhook that if you do this, what happens is every photo that you upload, makes this HTTP webhook call, and then you get an email of that photo and represented in ASCII. So great for all of those relatives that you have that use terminal email clients, right? So we don't need to discriminate against them. So this is an example. So different things, things that you build with the platform. Examples of that would be good.
Have you thought of doing like a hackathon, or because I went to the Bikini Media hackathon?
Yeah.
They got a bunch of different like they were working by developers.
Yeah. Yes.
Going to hackathon, like going to a hackathon.
Yeah. So I've been to hackathons, but I mainly just go there and hack myself. It's crossed my mind to have a hackathon. I'd really need to kind of gauge what kind of interest. Like, I don't want to throw a hackathon and just hack by myself all night. So, but yeah, no, that would be really cool. We would definitely want to do something like that. I haven't really gauged the interest on if people would like to do that, because the team is. I think this is the first time 2 people on the team have been in the same location. So this is kind of what we consider like the core team, and nobody here lives within driving distance of anybody else. So like the hackathon, maybe a virtual hackathon for the team, but yeah. So we'd love to do a hackathon, but we haven't yet. So yes. Oh, you know what? I did check that. So we have Japan. That's Asia, right? This is Belgium. So Patrick's from Belgium. Canada's a continent. Trying to think. Germany. Tobias is from Germany, so Europe. Another Canadian. So like maybe 3 or 4. Actually, both of these, they both live in LA. So 3 or 4 continents. And then these are all the people that pledged like over like $50 on Kickstarter. So they're considered part of it. Yeah. no, take your time. They're part of the team too.
What did you give them?
Yes. So I don't know. Like these people were These were $25. Those were like 50. And then T-shirts and camera straps, which have yet to be sent in the mail. But yeah, no. I got all their addresses like last week or the week before. So yeah, so it's T-shirts and camera straps. And then above that was like, I'll help you set up your own instance, or I'll import your photos from Flickr or something, more personal stuff. So
Question.
yeah.
Is there an easy way to export all your photos out of Facebook? Is there a tool or something like that?
No, but we'll build that. That's yeah. Facebook's not bad about that. I mean, they probably wouldn't even. The problem with Facebook is they don't necessarily retain your original photos, so you get some pretty crappy. Hopefully, the only photos that you have aren't on Facebook. If that's the case, they're going to be pretty low resolution, probably. So, but yeah, Facebook. You can export all your photos. The thing about Facebook and Flickr, like we have a user who has 100,000 photos on Flickr, and he wanted us to export. It's like, okay, that takes a little bit of planning to export that many photos, but on Facebook, people typically don't have tens of thousands of photos, I don't think. So it's really easy to do a Facebook export. So we don't have those tools, but we'll make it easy to do that via a UI. That won't be something where you need to run a script where you can go to a web page and you can click a button and it would kind of kick that off for you. So, any other questions? Okay. I'm more than happy to answer anything else or like show you a demo of the iPhone app or the web or anything like that if you have. But otherwise, thank you. It's been great.